registers. Our fourth day today, our fourth working day, we have two sessions. We're going to go into the second part of the session. It will be led by Natalia Doronsova regarding the statistical coverage and quality statistical coverage. I will be acting as uh, later on leading the session on the relevance of geospatial information. Let me give the floor now to Natalia Doronstova, and we have still two sessions. Natalia, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Gerardo. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. After this nice introduction on Merada by Gerardo and the cooking and the triple S, we are really regret to not being there physically. But now we will continue today with our session number 7. Today, we will have two different topics presenting support and cooperation projects at international level that highlight the importance of registers within the statistical system and the relevance of being aware of the state of development of our registers. I will not do any other introduction just to keep time, and I will go immediately to the presentation. And the discussion again will be taken after at the end of the two presentations. The first topic is the role of Sbr on improving digital economy statistics from developing countries, which will be presented by Scarlett von der Giel from UNCTAD, a United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. Scarlett has a very rich experience on international level. She is working at UNCTAD since 2003 for the e-commerce and digital economy branch. To improve the evidence base on digital economy policies, she works on the development of e-commerce and digital economy statistics, including by representing UNCTAD at various expert groups on economic and ICT statistics, and by organizing UNCTAD's own working group. But maybe she can explain more her own experience. It's a very big one. Scarlett, please go ahead. You have 15 minutes.
Thank you very much, Natalia. So first of all, let me see if I can share my screen. I'm not very great at this, but I'm supposed to be. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Great. So I don't plan on taking more than the 15 allotted minutes. Just to let you know why we were happy to intervene in the Wiesbaden group. Usually we listen in, but in this case, we also wanted to know that although statistical business registers or the expansion of them or improvement of them is definitely not a function of producing digital economy statistics. Digital economy statistics definitely depend on statistical business registers, because what we have been able to produce until now, and it's mostly data from developed countries, depends on business surveys, usually ICT-specific business surveys or modules of on ICT use inside of bigger business surveys, which of course depend on solid statistical business registers to make sure that we have a good sample frame. And as we know, as statisticians know, you have to put, if you don't put good numbers in, you cannot get good numbers out. So it's a little bit nicer put than garbage in, garbage out. But basically that's it. We need to have good, solid business registers in order to produce good, solid statistics, including on the digital economy. So that this is our main interest in the issue. We have an UNCTAD manual that was revised last year on the production of digital economy statistics, and it's going to be it is already the basis for capacity building in this area that we provide to developing countries. And it's not only material for training, but it's also a methodological reference that they can go to when they have doubts. And these doubts include the role of statistical business registers in the production of these statistics. This is the manual, and at the bottom of the presentation of the slide, you see the link to the manual, but I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I'm going to the next slide and let you know how is it that we're addressing statistical business registers in the manual itself. So the manual, as it says here, it talks about the policy context, why digital economy statistics are useful for policymakers. In the case of UNCTAD, they are essential to be able to guide countries in joining international trade and leveraging digitalization. And it also addresses institutional issues that are relevant to all aspects of statistics, how to coordinate a national statistical system, why this is important. In the case of digital economy statistics, which sometimes are pushed for by a line ministry on ICT or a ministry on commerce, the National Statistical Office has to do the heavy lifting of the statistics, but they don't get the resources that are necessary from the ministries that demand it. So these issues are all mentioned in the manual, and there is a big part of it that is devoted to methodological issues. And in particular, statistical business registers, we talk about under data sources and data collection methods. Now, in this section of the manual, we emphasize that business registers are considered, or we consider them, and I think I'm preaching to the converted here, key statistical infrastructure. It has become so more and more. They facilitate the aggregation of the digital economy indicators, which right now we have like a core list and then a complementary list. The core list is basically use of ICT by enterprises and indicators on the ICT sector, ICT productive sector. And now recently we have developed methodology for measuring exports of digitally deliverable services. So the other good part of statistical business registers is that they help reduce costs of statistical production, and they give us there is an opportunity, at least in analysis of the trade data, to cross-reference trade and business registers. We do recognize that there are current limitations, but we're encouraged that there is a continuous drive to improve business registers, like we have heard just yesterday and the day before, that countries want to improve the way that business registers are maintained, especially. We have limits in that there are data related to the digital economy that come directly from the registers. There are a number of ICTU's indicators that are limited, and we have the limitations we all know about, and that have been discussed here before, that the register has to be maintained so that dormant businesses, which are often small, are not polluting the source of the population frame. Also, we have the issue that the informal sector is not covered by business registers. And although both of these, both small businesses and informal businesses, are very significant in developing countries, which is the constituency of UNCTAD, still the statistical business register is considered really important, even if we're missing some data from the informal sector. And even if small businesses are disproportionately part of these dormant businesses, we still insist in the manual that countries make an effort to establish business register or to maintain it properly. We think they are the best bet to produce the best quality population frames for business surveys, and this will produce the best quality data on ICT use by enterprises. I wanted to say that in the case of the exports, the data on exports of ICT-enabled services, which is limited to businesses exporting digitally deliverable services, that would be services that can be delivered online. The prevalence of this type of enterprises in the general business register could be small, especially in developing countries. And for this reason, the use of other sample frames focused on exporting is recommended for this kind of survey. Specifically, the balance of payments register of services exporting firms, if available. And usually this register is managed not by the NSO, but by the National Central Bank. So next slide. I just wanted to note also that I don't know how to say this in English, El Evangelio of the Statistical Business Register, the preaching of the importance of this is going to be a continuing theme of UNCTAD capacity building work with national statistical offices. I think it's become clear now that our main constituency are developing countries and least developed countries. These are the ones that will be targeted. OECD and Eurostat countries have their business figured out. We have to bring this issue forward with our clients, which are the developing countries. We will do this through the UNCTAD data collection. I think some of the NSOs in this call will probably have received in the past couple of days an email from UNCTAD asking about the latest available digital economy statistics. And of course, there is a request for metadata on whether on these statistics. And this includes the business register. The manual is right now only available in English, but the idea is to translate it in most of the UN official languages to make it widely available. So also, I would like to appeal to those in this group that think that the manual may be of use or of value to either their offices or to friends in other offices, because my experience is that national statistical offices in developing countries like to talk to each other and help each other out. And we will have a first course using this new manual towards the end of this year for Pacific Island states. We also provide advisory services upon request. So this is also something that you might want to share with your network. If you think National Statistical Office would be interested in receiving technical assistance from UNCTAD in producing digital economy statistics and in improving their national statistical infrastructure with our help. And in 2022, there will be continued delivery of training and capacity building, always paying attention to the chapter on statistical business registers. Just want to say that this is all in the context of wider work of the on developing international agreed and comparable statistics, including this Wiesbaden group. I'm not going to go into all of this, but the very first one that is highlighted in blue is UNTAD's own working group. Some of you have already taken part in it. The next meeting of the working group will be next year. So far, the agenda items for that is gender-specific, gender-disaggregated data on the digital economy. But I would like to encourage you, if you think that the Wiesbaden group will have something relevant to say or wants to also spread the Evangelio of the Statistical Business Register for more solid digital economy statistics in our working group, please do say so, and we'll find a way to include this in our agenda for next year. This is all I have to say right now, and thank you very much for your attention. You can find out more about the digital economy statistics in particular at this link. Thank you.
Thank you, Scarlett. Thank you very much for your very interesting presentation of this very interesting, challenging cooperation project. The second and the last topic of this session is Sbr maturity model global consultation, which were elaborated by Hank Hermans from Statistics Netherlands and Saleh Al-Kafri from Palestinian Central Bureau of Statistics. The paper was elaborated for the account of the UN Committee of Experts on Business and Trade Statistics, and Hank will be presenter. Hank, I think you can start prepare your presentation, and I just will give some words about you. Hank is a Deputy Director, Economic and Business Statistics and International Accounts at Statistics Netherlands. Within Statistics Netherlands, Hank is responsible for the implementation of the new European Business Statistics Regulation and for implementing standard business reporting as new input channel for businesses. Hank is also a member of the Business Statistics Director Group of Eurostat, Bureau member of the Committee of Experts on Business and Trade Statistics, and he is task team leader on Exhaustive Business Register. Please, Hank, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I guess I'm not muted now, huh? You can hear me?
Yes. So we can hear and we can see.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you very much for those kind words. I will try to do this as fluent as possible, but that is a challenge for me, and many of you who know me know that it is so, so I will try to do it as best as possible. But first of all, I would like to thank you for the invitation to present this model at the Wiesbaden Group, because the Wiesbaden Group offers us a great opportunity to consult with many experts on business registers. And this session is dedicated to quality. And as you know, quality can be expressed in several ways. And the way you look at quality can be different when you look from another point of view. And that is exactly what we wanted to solve with the SBR maturity model. The manual on the model is the result of the work that has been done by the task teams on exhaustive business registers and the task team on capacity building, which is led by Saleh Al-Kafri. In this presentation, I would like to give you a brief overview of the model and the way forward, a way where we want also to ask the help of the members of the Wiesbaden Group. So what is the maturity model? In defining quality, we see that there are many differences between countries, what also lead to different challenges, and there is no standard. But despite that fact, we wanted to work to a tool that can be used in many situations. At the same time, we also know that there is already much available. So it would be a good thing if we can build upon that knowledge. You can think of manuals, you can think of best practices, and that is how the idea for a maturity model came out. A model that has already a big track record in, for example, the software industry. With the SBR maturity model, we wanted to make a tool where you can determine the current state of your SBR, where you can see what are the possible next steps for your SBR, and where you can find help and guidelines to actually also take those steps. And it should also be a place where we can share knowledge and best practices. So what are the components of the maturity model? First, we have the manual. In the manual, the framework is explained in detail, and I come back to that in the next slide. The manual also describes a view on statistical business registers. And besides the manual, we have developed a toolkit. And part of the toolkit is an online questionnaire with interactive features, and this will be explained a bit later. We also have prepared a list of training materials with concrete mappings to the model. And the last component of the toolkit is the global assessment that we want to conduct on a 5-year basis. This will also be explained a bit later. But first, let us look at the maturity model itself. The first step of the task teams was, like I said, to develop a strategic view on SBRs. This view was called the dot on the horizon. And in this view, we say something about the use of an SBR, the contents of the SBR, and the structure of it, all from a national and international perspective. I would like to invite you to take a look at the strategic view, which you can find if you follow the link that is in the paper that we uploaded to the Wiesbaden group. We call this view the dot, and it can also be seen as an ideal picture. And for some countries, it will be close to what the SBR is now. And for others, this dot will only contain some elements that are nice to work at. But the idea is that for an SBR, you can look at it from a specific point of view. Let's call that a dimension. And we defined 7 of them, and I will come to those in the next slide. Next to that, we have stages of maturity, and per stage, or for each stage of maturity, we defined what characteristics and what requirements need to be in place. Based on the differences between the stages, we are also able to define what kind of measures are needed to reach the next stage of maturity for that dimension. So basically, the SBR maturity model consists of these 7 dimensions, and I won't go into detail now because that takes too much time. And as I said earlier, we have 4 stages of maturity. But let me be very clear, there is no good or bad in this. The intention of the model is that everyone can use it and that it can help you and that we can help each other with developing a SBR that we want. Let's go to the next slide. Earlier I said that one of the elements of the toolkit is an online questionnaire. And this self-assessment tool is to be used to find out at what stage your SBR is for each of the 7 dimensions. And the answers you give to each of the questions are not being stored and will not be shared with others. The use of the online self-assessment questionnaire is purely for own use, and based on the answers, the score of each of the dimensions can be visualized in a spider plot. And you can see one example of this in this slide. In this example, the score of the assessment is drawn in a yellow color. And please understand that this is only an example and not based on real facts. But next to the score of the self-assessment that you do, one can also define the desired situation of the SBR. And that is plotted in this case with the green lines. Based on the difference between the yellow and green scores, the toolkit can offer you help to define those possible steps to achieve the desired situation. The toolkit now is based on available information, so information that we already have, but we hope that the contents of the toolkit or the knowledge bank can be extended by adding new best practices, new papers, new manuals, and so on. And I just told that the outcome of the self-assessment is for own use only, and that differs from the intention that we have for the global assessment. The global assessment is also based on that self-assessment questionnaire, but now the outcome will be shared with the UNSD office. And in this way, we are able to find out what the status of implementation of SBRs are in all countries. And the idea is now that we conduct the global assessment on a 5-year basis. The main goal for conducting the global assessment is to identify priority areas for the development of technical assistance. While exploring this idea, we of course noted that the Wiesbaden group asked for a yearly country progress report. And to prevent organizations from extra administrative burden, it would be good to identify possible synergies between the global assessment and the CPR. So this is also a call to you as members of the Wiesbaden group to think about those possible synergies, and we are open for suggestions. So where are we now? We are now in the phase of testing the questionnaire. And we already noticed that this is a very useful step because we already have found some inconsistencies and that we are solving now. And testing so also leads to improvement of the questionnaire, but also to improvement of the model itself. And it is always good to look at stuff from multiple views, as the maturity model itself also does. After ending the testing phase, we will prepare a final draft of the manual that we will subject to a global consultation. With a global consultation, we want to consult with countries on the proposed framework and the objectives of the maturity model. And based on the outcome, we will finalize the manual and prepare the manual for submission to the UN Statistical Commission, which takes place early next year. And I would like to use this opportunity to ask you as member of the Wiesbaden group to actively participate in the global consultation, because you have the expertise to make this initiative better than it is now. And I hope that we can count on your help for this. Thank you for your attention. It was my last slide. Thank you.
Thank you, Hank. Thank you for this interesting project and this update. It makes me very wanted to test the maturity of our register. I'm very interested
that is the idea.
in the results. Okay, that was our second presentation for today. Thank you both of you for your keeping time. And now the floor is open for discussion. You can raise your hand or put your question in the chat. Go ahead. Olivier, please, from France.
Thank you. Yes, I propose to share my experience on this questionnaire. I filled this questionnaire for France as a part of a test carried out within the task team which designed it. I find it very interesting to complete this very comprehensive questionnaire. This allows us to see the general degree of maturity of how structural business statistics, but above all, to identify areas for improvement. It could be useful from my point of view to know the country more advanced than our on certain subjects in order to help each country to progress. So I still have a question. Can the results be shared between countries after the consultation? Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. Hank, do you want to answer?
Yes, that is okay. I think we can, but we didn't discuss that yet in the task team, and I haven't discussed it yet with the UNSD office. So what we could do is make it a question in the questionnaire itself, if the answers can be shared with other people. So I think it's a good idea to do that, because I also know that it would be good to learn from others what they are doing. But I can also imagine that some organizations are a bit reluctant to share their results with other countries. So let us discuss that in the task team, and it is a very good discussion and a very good suggestion. But we also have to think to those countries that are not willing to share or not are allowed to share the answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Hank, for your answer. Gerardo?
Gracias, Natalia.
Thank you, Natalia. Let's just say, based on what our colleague from France, Olivier, was saying and Hank's answer, I think it is actually very important to discuss this point, to go over the interest of making the results known as to the maturity model in the countries that have answered that questionnaire. It would be very useful. We must take into account that something that we've been working on with the UN Statistics Office is to make public the results of the country progress report. We are interested even, and I think this would be an interesting point, and based on that information made known as to what is the state that we have, the level that we have in terms of maturity levels, and how this is changing throughout time, what we can see based on that country progress report, for it to be made known, for it to be published, so that countries can exchange perspectives, experiences, and we can learn from each other. I think, like Hank, that it's a good point to be discussed in among task teams about these exhaustive business registers. Thank you, Natalia.
Thank you, Gerardo. Yeah, I agree with you, and also I think it's the same point that Fabio raised yesterday when he was speaking about these quality indicators made by Eurostat and which are today not published. And I think it would be also very interesting to share this in the results between us to know from each other. I agree. Thank you, Sally. You have a question or remark?
Yeah, thank you very much, Hank, for your presentation. And I think one of the objectives of the maturity model is experience change, international experience change. So if you look into the chart that Hank explained it, how to escape from level to another level to be more advanced. There is a list of guide and manuals and training courses, everything. Include also what is the countries that more advanced me and they have the same environment of my country, for example. So this maturity model will help the countries to know where's the country, other countries, they have same environment and they have also advanced more than me, they have, and how to learn from them. So one objective of how to exchange the experience, and I think the point that Ilaria this very important to think about how to publish it, to be visible in the same website of this model. So it will be clear if I am in this level, and I hope to skip to next level. What are the countries that can I ask them to help me and ask from their experience? So thanks for Oliver for this point, and to think more how practically how to be in the questionnaire. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. Is there someone else who would like to intervene on the boss topic? No. Sorry. There is a message in chat. Oscar, would you intervene?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, Oscar?
Yes, thank you. Hello, everyone. I want to ask if the countries don't want to share its results publicly, it could be do it anonymously. By it could be displayed anonymously by grouping them and displaying the results as a distribution. So we as a statistical office could be able to place ourselves in the space of with other statistical listener registers. And this could be very useful to have a measurement of how good or how bad are we, and in some way we could be distance from the problem of the subjectivity. If we are answering the questions in a biased way, so it could be useful if you could put yourself in a space of distribution without knowing which country is placed in every punctuation of or what country have such a specific score in this region. That is, thank you.
Yes, thank you. You are right. It could be also a solution, a possibility to publish the data other way. There is no more question. Maybe just another question to Scarlett. How many countries are involved in your project? And what will be feedback? You said that you did already one course. And what was the feedback from this course?
Yeah, we haven't made it yet. It's programmed for November, to start in November. It will be our first time doing statistical training online. It's going to be an experience, and we'll be happy to report on how that worked out. But this will only take place in November for the Pacific countries. It's our first. We've done this capacity building on face-to-face training in the past, and we usually do it by region and by language group. And that is the approach we want to take going forward with the new manual. However, of course, because of the pandemic, this first time we're doing it for the Pacific Island states remotely. For 2022, we hope maybe that we'll be able to do face-to-face training like before. And what we have done in the past, which, like I said, is more or less the same pattern we plan to follow, is to we have the whole developing world, let's say, as a target. So we have grouped training courses on statistics in the past according to Anglophone Africa, Francophone Africa, Lusophone Africa, Spanish speaking, which is usually Latin America, and we've had training for the transition economies in Russian. That is usually, and for Asia Pacific, which has such a diverse language base, it has to be in English. Oh, and we also had Arabic for the Western Asia countries. But it's usually regional by language group, and it's for the whole world, whole developing world. And we try to collaborate with statistical offices from developed countries or with the OECD or Eurostat, because they are considered by many of the developing country NSOs as the pioneers in terms of producing digital economy statistics. And in the case of the Statistical Business Register, also they have best practices. And that's the feedback we can give to you once we do this next training in November, December. We'll be happy to bring you some feedback from that.
Yeah, it would be interesting. Thank you. Thank you very much for your answer. I don't see any more question, remarks. Then I think, and the time is over, I think, already. I would like to thank you all again, to thank all presenters for their presentation, for their topics, and sharing with us their experiences and giving us the ideas for our future work. And I also would like to thank you all participants and in this for this rich discussion. And again, organizer for giving me this opportunity to lead this session. And innovation, evaluation, and support project are only underline and remind us how the topic of quality and of statistical coverage is central within the statistical world. And it's very exciting to see that despite COVID-19 pandemic, people remain committed and innovative. And thank you very much. I give the floor back to you, Gerardo. Thank you.
Muchas gracias,
Fabio
Natalia.
would like to say hello. He's just here behind me.
Hello, Fabio. Muy bien, muchas gracias, Natalia. Hello, Fabio. It's nice to see you, and especially after your recovery of your surgery. Nice to see you. my good wishes. Excelente, muchas gracias, Natalia. Bien,
Thank you
vamos
so much, Natalia. So let's move on to our 8th session. I will be session leader on this occasion. Session 8 has to do with usefulness of geospatial information. On this occasion, we are going to have two presentations, one from our colleagues from the Statistics Office in Portugal, and the other one by INEGI, by my colleague Hugo Hernandez. I just wanted to say a few introductory words in terms of the relevance of geospatial information in the context of business registers. And I think that in this sense, allow me to provide an example of what we're doing at INEGI. The G for geography, we are the National Institute for Statistics and Geography in Mexico. We combine both analytical perspectives, both kinds of information, statistical and geographical, in order to provide sets of data that are more robust for our users. So based on that logic and meeting with our leading group, we incorporated this geospatial information perspective, and therefore that is why this is part of this 8th session in terms of the usefulness of this kind of information. I wanted to refer to the presentation made by Arturo Blancas on Monday regarding the country progress report and what the state is in terms of business registers. We had over 50 responses from countries around the world, and we found something that was very interesting in terms of geospatial information. We found that almost 55% of statistics office or responsible for business registers reported that they have geospatial information in their business registers, whether directly captured or associated information based on other databases. This is an important step taken forward in order to incorporate this analytical dimension provided by geospatial information. So based on that perspective, I was telling you we have two presentations pending right now. I just wanted to say that when I see, in this case, the abstract and the presentation that our colleagues from Portugal have sent our way, maybe the reflection is that beyond geospatial information, we have to think about all this information that allows us to better know our companies, economic units that we have in our business registers. This is because the first presentation in this 8th session from our colleagues from Portugal has to do with this topic. I'll be introducing now the three authors. Isabel Farinha has collaborated for over 30 years in the Statistics Office of Portugal since 1991. In 1992, she became lead for the Business Register and has experience in several international groups and in terms of recommendations of entrepreneurial group in the European context, meaning the Eurogroup register. João Poças is working at INE Portugal, the statistics office in Portugal, since 1997. He has broad experience in management of computing systems and is in charge of administrative data units in Portugal. And finally, the third author of this presentation, Antonio Portugal, he is collaborating at the Statistics Office in Portugal since 1990 and is responsible for the Statistical Business Register for, among others, as well as data and metadata storage. He is also head of the unit for information infrastructure at the Statistics Office in Portugal. According to what the authors have commented, Isabel Farinha will be responsible for presenting today. The topic is very suggestive. I was saying that it opens up another analytical perspective beyond geospatial information. The topic is, do you know your companies? How much do we know our companies? And in this case, what elements do we have to better know them? So, without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Isabel Farinha. Go ahead, you have the floor. Thank you.
No podemos escuchar a...
We cannot hear.
It's okay?
Ya te podemos ver y escuchar. Adelante, Isabel.
Yes, now we can hear you.
Gerardo, I will try to share my presentation if I can. Okay. Could you see?
No todavía, not yet. Ya podemos verla. We can see it. No problem.
Okay.
It's okay. We can see you and we can hear you, and your presentation is in front of us.
Okay, thank you. Okay, my name is Isabel. It was already said. The challenge is to give an answer to our first question. Do you know our companies? I will try to answer during this presentation. The next slide. Oops. Okay, it's okay?
Yes, we are now in the second slide.
Okay, the next slide, we are a picture with a lot of papers because my presentation will focus to focus on a progressive increase in the administrative data to help getting to know our companies. This picture represents a lot of administrative data that becomes to last 2 years. Well, statistical business register can get to know the statistical units, in particular for legal units, for which we have more sources. Survey sources and administrative sources can help to update, to allow to update and improve the quality of information that characterize the legal units. Large amount of information, volume and number of units are available, and new processes are being developed to find new statistical units that guarantee the best coverage of the business register. Of course, in my presentation, I also briefly mentioned the flash reports and data analysis made possible to use the business register. The next slide. Business register is a register for the annual frame. Integrated the structural information on the various statistical units, uses different administrative sources, contains also the list of sources and the way of using the data for updating, contains the history of the use of each sources, includes also the rules and priorities in the appropriation for the different statistical units and for the different reference periods. Okay, next slide. Okay, you can see next slide. Different types of units we are in business register. We are legal units, local units, we register the head office and the others. Activity units, primary and secondary activity units. For activities, we have new variables included in the business register that allow to delineate a kind of activity unit. Is ongoing in our business register, and enterprise unit is also ongoing. The main marks and attributes for this type of units, we refer, start and stop activity, change the activity situation, fusion and splits between legal units, change the inactivity nice code, and geography. About activity nice code, in our country, we have a system, an integrated system, to manage national activity code. This system has a legal support and a strong cooperation between institutions to allocate a uniform nice code for the legal units. About geographic codes, we are a longitude and latitude information, but it's not resident in business register. This information in business register, we are building code registered in our business register for each local unit that allows we connect to the national building files where we catch the geography code. Okay, about sources. At Statistics Portugal, we have a set of systems interlinked with self-fulfilling requirement management systems from the data collection department and the universe and sample management system that were under constant evolution and revision. This requires the permanent adaptation and update of the business register. Our colleagues from data collection team are available an online window to update business register. These updates have no impact on frames and samples. And business register team and data collection team have also an online window available for daily use. But these daily updates have impact on Samsung and Universe. For example, when any statistical operation needs to correct some figures in sample for example, to replace one statistical unit with another or change the code activity, the business register team and data collection can do this. This update have impact in frames and sample, and also in business register, in live business register. Okay. All surveys can propose updates checked by business register team. Is a proposal updates. Can also propose a data set of information to update business register, live business register. But changes with major impact must be discussed with business register data collection, methodology team, national accounts, business register team to decide which change to do. Next slide. Okay. Okay, the main administrative sources, we are the traditional administrative sources. The two first lines of administrative sources are important to identify and creating a new needs. The first one is important for companies, and the second one is important for individuals and sole proprietors. The next two administrative sources is important to economic data. Economic data, the first one, IRS, is important to give economic data for individuals, and IS, Simplified Business Information, is important to give economic data for companies. Like a CKI, this is a system, an integrated system with economic data, with political support and strong cooperation between institutions. It has a support in the annual statement of companies residing in the tax authority, shared by the main statistical authorities, such as INE and Central Bank. Okay, monthly enterprise remuneratory statement from Social Security is important to give employment and remuneration in each month. Okay, yes, private social security solidarity institution is also from Social Security, is important for institutional non-profit institutional sector, and the post office is important to identify addresses, geographical codes. The next slide. Large amount of information, volume and number of units are received from last 2 years. These administrative data are being used to surprise the decrease in the response rates to the business survey to the pandemic last 2 years. The interaction of companies, legal units, with the state through administrative and fiscal act with customers, suppliers and partners produces more and more data through a greater diversity of channels. In this context, information from the electronic invoice system become more relevant, contributed to the consistency of the results obtained in the production of statistical indicators. The administrative sources increase the preponderance in supporting the production of statistical indicators and the interconnection with the business register to characterize the legal units within the activity sector, institutional sector, and geographic sector, without forgetting also demography. The business register as a support to characterization of characterization of the statistical units and complying with national and European regulation ensure consistencies and coherences in the economic statistics produced. The last, okay, statistics, okay. Statistics Portugal receives monthly information of invoices grouped by the producers and consumers pair of tax of invoices. The invoices information is integrated with business register by ID key. All of the sources, administrative sources and statistical sources use the same ID. Okay, about flash reports, we can also show some examples that we produced with analysis, and that light is available with the data. The web report built with R Markdown technology. With this approach, one unique sources is available internally and with all structural last information about the company.
2
For
minutes
example,
left.
sorry?
2 minutes left, Isabel.
Thank you. For example, I have amount taxable value distributed per year. And this is an example. And we can, from the integration with business register, we can also distribute this information for numbers, distribute the number of taxable amount values for nice code 2-digit level. And the same with the institutional sector. And also we can distribute for regions, our national regions, and we can also distribute for national foreign buyers and national buyers, and for our region is in the second part of the picture. For finished my presentation, we can see using a key, all information can be crossed to produce multi-source statistics and along series. And infrastructure of statistical business register is a great help. However, the statistical business registers need to cope with an increasing number of sources, which are not always well integrated, therefore causing an absent in information it could be necessary to inserting the business register. Okay, the speed of information and the need for its rapid availability to society is ever increasing. So this speed and volume of data capture needs to increase at the same paces. In this picture, we can see through a better and integrated use of all administrative sources. Integrated with business register, we are able to turn dispersed data into relevant information needed to produce solid statistical indicators for society. For finish, I think is the last slide. We have future developments. We need focus in outliers, and we try to analyze this information on the expenditure side by the consumers. Integration with other data sources, either internal or external sources. Is finished. Thank you. I'm finished. Thank you for your attention. I'm attend your questions.
Many thanks, Isabel. Muchas gracias, Isabel. Estamos entonces ahorita.
We thank you, Isabel. We are now ready for the next presentation, the round of Q&A. We will have it after the presentation that will be led by INEGI Mexico. This presentation by INEGI Mexico is going to share with you what we have been working with at the Office of Geographic and Statistical Office in Mexico in regards to the National Directory of Economic Units. This is going to be a very practical presentation. For this purpose, let me give you quickly a briefing on Hugo Hernandez. Hugo Hernandez has been working at INEGI for the past 25 years. He's the design, processing, and analysis director of the business statistical records in Mexico. So he's been for 25 years in the institute, and he's been dedicated to the production of different information regarding the economic statistical field. So please, the floor is yours, Hugo. You can start your presentation. I thank you, Gerardo, for the kind introduction. I am pleased to greet you once again. Can you tell me if my presentation is on the screen? Not yet. Not yet. We still cannot see it on the screen. Well, let me share with you a product that we have developed here at INEGI, as Gerardo mentioned, in order to provide a tool to users and the population in general regarding the time of the pandemic. As most of you know, at this point, we already do have the statistical directory of economic units that through a consulting process, we can show the location of the establishments in the place where they're developing their economic activity. And in my presentation will be integrated by an introduction, then the classification of economic activities into essential and not essential, matching with our essential activities with NAICS, the Statistical Business Register of Mexico, where we have a slide where we will describe this, and then our COVID-19 in the new COVID-19 layer and conclusions. Next, as I was sharing with you, for us in Mexico, the pandemic, the lockdown, the so-called quarantine has started around early March of 2020. So then what we did then was we considered the different activities that the federal government and the state governments, this is at the subnational level, declared as essential activities. And these essential activities, we had the matching here with the different types of activities of our classifier. And we identified the establishments that are dedicating to those essential activities with the idea that within these quarantine or lockdown times, that the users will identify the essential activities close to their home address. So the federal government and some of the states published in the official gazettes the status of the activities that they considered essential. Hospital, drugstores, physicians, manufacturing activities that they considered as essential. Here we are showing you the number of types of activities following our classifier. We have a frequency of number of activity classes for some sectors. We actually had 536 classes of activities. Once we associated what the federal and the state governments declared as essential activities, and what we did, and we ended up with 536 classes at 6 digits identified as essential. Now for sector 62 in our classifier for health and social assistance services, we were included, for example, the doctor's offices, dentist offices, outpatient care centers, laboratories, also medical and diagnostic laboratories, home health care services, ambulatory health care services, and these activities were considered as essential. Now we have our Statistics Business Register of Mexico. We know it as RENEM by its acronym in Spanish. Now we update our RENEM fully every 5 years with the economic census outcomes and results. And then we take advantage of this, given the fact that the economic most recent census that was done took place 2019. So our RENEM was basically updated. Then this allowed us to have information that was more relevant for the Mexican society. Let me point out that for us in Mexico, our basic unit is the establishment. Our basic observation unit is the establishment. And from here on, we go into enterprises that do share the same legal name. So we had the fresh information available in order to be able to provide this service to our end users. Now, as I have mentioned to you, we already have a consulting system for the DENUE, where we can identify in a general way where the establishments are located. We have some variables here that we can screen at the geographical level, at the level of the size of the establishments. We also can make searches by economic activities or even by names of the companies, etc. And therefore, the idea that we have through this consulting system is that we can locate exactly where these establishments are placed at the location where their activities are performed. So having this system in place and an updated RENEM in a full way with the economic census outcomes and with this situation as a result of the pandemic in March of 2020, what we actually did was we generated a layer that we called it COVID-19 layer within the DENUE. This is using the advantages of this consulting system with the information that we have and also the statutes of the activities that the federal and state governments decided as essential by matching this information and the classifier. Following slide, please. So we added this layer, and what we have here as an example on the right-hand side of our screen, you have major names of activities determined as essential. Drugstores are here, financial services, everything involving banks, medical offices, hospitals, ambulance services, etc., in such a way that the consulting system that the user could determine which activity they wanted to check. They could select one, more than one, or all of them even. So every activity is associated to an icon in such a way that when you see it within the map, you're able to make a difference between a drugstore, a bank, a supply store, or a packaging or service or mailing service. So actually here, I hope you can see it on the screen on the left-hand side. We selected this group of activities. First of all, then the next slide, please. After identifying these essential activities, once we determine the consulting process, we are able to select the size by level. If it's from 0 to 5, etc. Even the biggest ones, and then by geographic area. Well, we can go at the national level, and we can do it for a state, a municipality, or even a location. In this case, we can see that we are already selecting all of the drugstores and hospitals. You can see that they have a check mark in drugstores and hospitals. And in this case, the city of Mérida, the state is Yucatan. I select Yucatan, the state, then the city, Mérida. And then within this image, we can show you Mérida city. And we can see here the dots where you can locate drugstores and hospitals. Next slide, please. If we make a zooming, well, then we can identify and locate where they are at. You have here a plus sign for the drugstores and another icon for hospitals. I can identify which are the hospitals and drugstores that are closer to a specific point of interest. We're not showing this within this layer in the COVID-19 layer any other type of establishments. Only the ones that we are selecting, and they have to do with what is considered as an essential activity. Now we can even zoom in further, and I will select either of the icons, and then it will provide me a file where it will give me more specific data, such as the establishment that I have selected, and also the home address, the name of the location, and let me mention that given the case that it will be an individual, we do not publish this, only we show those of conglomerates. Now here we write down the activity, the name, the activity that they are dedicated to, and here we have that this the NUE consulting system also has the possibility that the informants can add here commercial information and information that is related with their establishment. This allows users to the possibility of having more information available. Next one, please. This app is also a part of our mobile apps. So from a mobile device, we can use this tool. Next slide, please. Now, which are the conclusions obtained by this work? Well, as it has been shared throughout the 4 days of our meeting, well, the pandemic caused by COVID-19 meant important challenges to the national statistical offices. We actually had to react with timeliness in the development of either new products or even to continue carrying out our activities to generate economic statistical information. The information within the NUE, the statistical business records, allows us to provide high quality products for our society, coordinating statistical information, geography, and the ICTs. And with this, we can provide information that is truly relevant for the users. Another lesson learned here was that the national statistical offices must be closer to the users in order to provide them with the necessary tools. This in itself, let me mention that the NUE is one of the most broadly used products created by our statistical office in Mexico. So it has been a very highly used tool, more so in the most complicated moments of this pandemic situation. And to conclude, let me just share some references that have to do with the official gazette at the national level, and also official gazettes of some of the states that integrate Mexico as a country. So we thank you so much, and we are now open for your questions. Well, Hugo, thank you very much. We thank also Isabel of the Statistical Office of Portugal, Hugo Hernandez of INEGI Mexico, and we now have a chance to uh, check our different questions. We have a question within the chat coming from our colleague from Brazil, Dimicius Fonseca, and he congratulates Hugo for his presentation. And is there any type of problem in regards to the confidentiality, given the identification of economic units individually and also by companies or by establishments? Hugo, would you like to respond to this question, please? Yes, Gerardo, I thank you for your question. Within the DNUE and in this COVID layer, we make public only information of 22 variables. So it was determined by the Board of Governance of the INEGI Institute that these variables could be disseminated, and it is information that can be found in a telephone directory. It could be found within internet, that you can find it out in the streets, in the labels of the establishments, and it's also then it's only the name. Now, given individuals, physical persons, given confidentiality, we cannot give the name of the person physically, only if it is a legal entity, a company. Like, for example, if it's a physical owner, we only say drugstore. We don't write Joan Perez as the owner. We only say drugstore. It is along this line that the NUE, as we are saying, is the public face of the SBR in Mexico, and it provides us with information that is considered as public information, not non-confidential information. We thank you. We have another question from Jamie Brunet. It's also for Hugo. And how do you get the number of persons involved or occupied? Well, thank you, Jamie. Yes. Well, what we do within the economic census, we visit the establishments and we have a questionnaire for them. And one of the variables that is important is the number of employees of each of the establishments. So the economic census allow us to provide information at the establishment level and with a level of disaggregation up to the public level, to the establishment level of this information collected. So every 5 years, as I was sharing with you, we update our statistical registers of business and or SBRs, and well, through the surveys and the economic national surveys, where several of them have non-probabilistic sampling areas. And then we are updating the biggest ones every year. We also update our RENEM with administrative records, SBRs, provided by the energy company in Mexico and the Ministry of the Treasury. This is the tax office. And we always request this data, the variables for the economic classification, and the employees, we have other variables such as income and other variables. Those are not made public. Thank you.
Now is the opportunity for Roland Storm from Germany. You are raising the hand. Roland, go ahead.
Very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Hugo, for this presentation. I have a question regarding comparing your results with the results of Google Maps. I guess that the NUE or your business register is supposed to be complete, huh? Coverage. So it would be very, very interesting to compare the view that you give on a special area to the view that is given by Google Maps, who provide the firms by location as well. Maybe we could find out how good Google Maps is, but maybe also we could find out whether there are new entries which you haven't taken on board in your register as well. So I think this kind of comparison could be promising. What do you think?
Adelante, Hugo.
Sí, gracias. Sí, sin lugar a duda.
Thank you. Without a doubt, Roland, these comparisons with Google Maps are very important. We have our maps there from Google Maps, but these comparisons are very interesting to make. At the moment that we start off our economic surveys, we obtain the references and make contact with the establishment or facility. So at that time in our survey, our information is quite specific. And yes, we are assessing the possibility of updating this information, especially when it comes to small facilities or small enterprises with other kinds of tools. Thank you. Thank you, Hugo, for your answer. I have a question for our colleague from Portugal. It would be the following. Once again, thank you, Isabel, for sharing the work that you are doing in Portugal. It has to do with digital challenges. I'm thinking about what it has meant to us in Mexico, the technical difficulties of being able to go through standardization of databases, cleaning of information in order to obtain data that makes sense within the context of business registers. So when you're working with information from invoicing, for example, etc., how do you carry out that? How are you facing all of these technical issues? And are you doing so with internal developers, people that work internally, or are you hiring or outsourcing these developers? What's the situation in Portugal?
Thank you, Gerard, for your question. For us in Portugal, when crossed information from administrative sources, it's not complicated because all of sources have an ID number to cross information. But the important thing is to define rules. We need to know something about quality of the sources. Is why one of the sources is most important to some variables than other sources. From this prioritization in information and rules, considering reference period from the data sources, then we define together with our colleagues from statistical business statistics, national accounts, short-term statistics, surveys, production statistics. we discuss together the rules to define priorities. Then we choose which information we put. For the last 2 years, the information, or at the moment, we receive information per month. This is a new challenge because sometimes some enterprises or some legal units is not really created because there is a new, they're produced taxable information, but the administrative source that we use to create is not available or are not available this information. This is one of the outliers, for example. And sometimes we have, for example, sole proprietors with age, turnover, or employees. We can ask the source about this information. In this case, tax authority. We have a protocol with the tax authority, and we can conversation easy. It's all, or we have another question?
Sí. Gracias Isabel. Si en
Yes, I wanted to know if the computer aspect, the computing aspect, you're doing so with internal developers, or are you hiring people from the outside?
Solamente just our team, our informatic team.
Muchas gracias por la aclaración.
Manipulate data, yes.
Muchas gracias, Isabel. Veo
Thank
que
you
Hugo...
so much, Isabel. I see that Hugo Hernandez is raising his hand, and with this, I think that we're going to wrap up our Q&A session. Thank you, Gerardo. Just to add to my answer a few moments ago, and as Gerardo was saying, the G for geography of the acronym of our institute, the National Institute for Statistics and Geography, INEGI, means that we have a full department that covers geographical aspects. And one very important element is the updating of all of our maps. So they are continuously updating all information in the field for the institutes. And so that mapping is the one that Google Maps uses for their maps, and they also take from there, take information in terms of properties and facilities. So however, it is a very good recommendation to use, especially in between surveys, to use information from this tool to carry out these assessments. Thank you, Hugo. Our colleague Tammy Hookstein from Canada is writing via chat as to the popularity of the tool. And there is a question that I think is very interesting. And so, is there a way in which establishments or businesses can provide feedback to INEGI, and in this case to also update information in periods between surveys? Thank you, Gerardo, and thank you, Tammy. Yes, the consultation system of the directory is interactive, of the register is interactive, so users can do several things. They can add additional information if they belong to a chamber of commerce, what kind of products they provide, what kind of products they use, And they can also request updates, meaning I've changed my activities, I have more staff, etc. We don't provide specific information as to the number of employees, but we give a range from 1 to 5, from 6 to 10, etc. So there is that possibility. So what we do is receive that request, we verify the information, we update our registers. Thank you. Thank you, Hugo. So it's time to take a quick break. Let's make an adjustment. Let's take only a 10-minute break, and we can be back at 8:51 Mexico City time. So timer, please, and we'll be back in 10 minutes. Thank you.
Well, I think that it's time to continue. Thank you, everyone. Muchas gracias a todos. Estamos.
Thank you, everyone. We are coming back from our 10-minute break. We are still in our 4th day of the meeting. Based on what we were talking about, I would like to briefly introduce this next topic. It's an innovative one that we decided on, the convenience to have the opportunity to have a round for conclusions by each session leader. So what we agreed to right now was to incorporate this session in order to have the opportunity to go through the conclusions, the relevant elements that each of the session leaders saw in terms of the sessions that they coordinated. So we decided, as you know, our session 1 was led by Arturo Blancas from INEGI Mexico. So Arturo gave us a background of the over 50 countries that answered the country progress report surveys. So let's, we're gonna focus from session 2 up until session 8 to see the relevant elements that came out of this meeting. So let's begin with this round. For this, what we're gonna do is, if you refer to the agenda of our 4th day of the Wiesbaden group, this block will take us about 40 minutes. We have foreseen that we won't be finishing later than 10:30 Mexico City time. So we're gonna give each speaker 6 minutes. And we're gonna start covering the topics most important. So let's begin with Ilaria Di Mateo, considering that session 1, led by Arturo Blancas, was the country progress report background and results. And so here, Ilaria can tell us a little bit about these relevant elements relating to the challenges of SBR, for SBRs. Ilaria Di Mateo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Gerardo. So if we look back at session 2, the aim of the session was to really share experiences and country practices on the challenges that country faces with the development of SBR or the maintenance of SBR to respond to new and emerging needs, such as digitalization, globalization, and other elements. We saw from the example, from the country presentation, example of how, first of all, that the SBR are really a central element in the statistical production process of countries. So the SBR has been is used for in support to microdata linking, and we saw the experience of Italy in linking various sources through the SBR to better study digitalization in businesses. We saw also the use of the SBR in conjunction with other sources to develop new statistics on business registration. And also we touched upon the importance of sharing country experience, especially in the monitoring and implementation of statistics on demography statistics for complex enterprises. And in this section, we also looked at the new challenges for countries that are developing or improving the SBR. There are initial stages. And we saw the effort from Chile to the project to migrate the SBR to a new system that encompass very important elements like profiling and other elements. And we shared the experience from the project in Myanmar on the importance of building the collaboration with administrative sources and as a process, a continuous process of communication and discussion with them. So I think that the main conclusion, in my view, from this session is the SBR remain the pillar of the statistical production process in country, and there are various efforts to adjust and to improve the SBR to continue to be relevant and provide this function to the statistical offices. And I think that also from the other session remain fundamental the sharing of experiences on SBR, that this city group really plays a fundamental role in this area. So I think this is all from my side, Gerardo. Happy to hear additions and other comments to the conclusion of session 2.
Muchas gracias, Ilaria. Aprecio ahorita tus palabras.
Thank you, Ilaria. I appreciate your summary. So we're doing very well in terms of time, Ilaria. In fact, you have just allowed us to adjust to our time frame, considering the delays that we had. So let's go to session 3, led by Enrica Morganti from Eurostat. She coordinated session 3, having to do with innovations and new ways of interactions with users. Enrica Morganti, you have the floor.
Thank you, Gerardo. First of all, I would like to say that it was an honor to chair the session. It was a great pleasure to see all of you, and I didn't say this yesterday because I was really pressed by the time, but if now we have a little bit of space, I would really use to thank also Inagi for the successful organization of the meeting. So session 3 was about innovations and new ways of interaction with users. So as Ilaria already mentioned, we know that the statistical business registers have different roles and they are the pillar for the production of statistics. And we wanted to see these roles from the perspective of serving users with new information, new developments. So, for instance, we saw in the paper prepared by the Statistics Bureau of Japan, new way of using the business register to produce direct statistics. A very relevant topic, especially when this can better serve the user needs for improving the information that they can have at economic level for countries where the statistical register is mainly updated by surveys and by economic census. We saw the effort made to develop the methodology, and for sure this is not an easy task. So I'm sure that the discussion also about the methods to be used for the estimation of the units of the variable of the missing years will be very relevant and will continue. Then we saw the paper from the Swiss Federal Statistical. Our colleagues here offer the opportunity to see how the statistical business register interacts also with other organizations and other providers of data. They presented their project to develop this interoperability platform, accessible and able to provide information on the quality of the many sources that are available for statistical production, and following this only one principle, so something interesting that I'm sure we will hear more applications in the future. They presented a set of indicators developed to describe the quality of the data, And also they presented a questionnaire that they will use to consult the users on the newly developed prototype of this platform. So it was really a very interesting item, because I think more and more the administrative data are available to statistical users. And this approach clearly shows us that we need a method to deal with so many data sources. We need a method to use them in an organized and structured way. And this also requires standardization and a lot of work at methodological level behind. Then the third paper was prepared by the US Bureau of Labor Statistics. And here we saw that we can have new insight for users on the information derived by the statistical business register, by microdata linking the information, by using longitudinal methods. In particular, they show how they use the quarterly census of employment and wage database to analyze the business dynamics, so to say, the job gains and job losses in relation to the wage dynamics. So the two information linked together. So a very interesting example on how the business register can be used to really serve with additional information. So to conclude, all the papers show how powerful are the statistical business register to support innovative information for user needs. Of course, they all show that a lot of initial investment is needed. So for developing the methodologies, for building up the tools, for building up the capabilities to use certain techniques and do the relevant analysis. But of course, once the knowledge is there, it can have many spillovers and can really be a big source of output. So this would be my conclusion, that it should be, let's say, for all the countries to continue investing in this, because really there is a lot to be done in this area.
Muchas gracias, Enrica. Aprecio.
We thank Enrica so much. We value your comments. It's been a quite interesting session, of course. And at this point, I would like just to share the following. In regards to this particular topic that was a part of the session 4 that was led by Egon Gerards regarding new products, new data sources, and the use of new toolkits, he is not at this moment within the meeting. He might join us our meeting. So what we will do next is to skip the Egon Gerard's case, so we can give room to the conclusions and participation of Andrew Allen, our colleague from the UK Statistical Office. So in what has to do with session 5 regarding globalization, he can share with us the scenario of the relevant issues and conclusions. So if you please, Mr. Allen, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Gerardo. Thank you very much, everybody.
And
may I also thank Inegi for putting on this meeting and dealing with producing a really good meeting, even in this funny Zoom environment. You know, it has worked really well technically. I think everybody's been connected all the way through, which is brilliant so far. So yes, my session was session 5, which was a rather, as Gerardo introduced it on the first day, it was a rather conceptual session, an unusual one perhaps for this group, which really usually deals with more practical issues. And it was around the use of statistical units and their relevance in globalization, and how globalization has affected, you know, the use of statistical units, and whether really we have the right sort of units still, given the age of some of the unit definitions. we only had one contribution, but it was a very good contribution from Roland Sturm from Status in Germany, who, as I described at the time, is an expert in this subject with a long history in it. And so basically the conclusions that I reached from this discussion was that we do need to have the statistical unit family that we currently have. The whole range of statistical units all have a function, but we do have to think about what to do for the future for these. I think it was accepted in the discussion afterwards, and I forgot to say that I wanted to say there was a very good discussion afterwards. So I was really pleased with the quality of the discussion afterwards. What we agreed at that discussion was there is more work to be done in this area because the units, many of them have derived from way back from before the early 1990s, and globalization has changed the world. And so we agreed that we should do some further work in this area. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we agreed that perhaps the UN Committee on Experts on Business Registers should take forward some discussions around units as well as part of their work. I mean, that is the conclusions I've reached from this short session. So thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Andrew, por tus
Well, we
comentarios.
thank you, Andrew, for your comments. Of course, the session, well, we will have to share this within the steering group. We talked about the relevance of reviewing our statistical units, how we have defined this within our business records in the countries. And of course, this is a front of analysis that has to do with a closed discussion with the Statistical Committee of Statistical Information of the United Nations. Now, we will continue with session 6 that was led by our colleague of the German Statistical Office from Germany, Roland Stone. And here we talked about the always relevant issue of profiling and the large business units. So here I will give the floor to Roland. Roland, the floor is yours now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Session 6 was headlined Profiling in Large Cases Units, Practical Aspects of Reflecting Multinationals in the Business Register. So this should be some counterpart to the session 5, more theoretical view, perhaps, and I guess it was. Multinationals itself is a quite unprecise term, and we subsume enterprise groups as well as enterprises to distinct units, fancy units that have become highly relevant for statistics on globalization. Highly relevant, but not, although not obvious how to capture these appropriately in the business register. This was the focus of the session. And as I said yesterday, in order not to invent the wheel manifold and worse than put all these wheels on our vehicle and call it international comparable statistics, we need harmonization and we need coordination. And we need to share the practical experiences, which of course are made in the different statistical offices, in the offices of the states, of the countries, but also in the offices of the international organizations. And we had 4 presentations covered this perfectly, in my view. We had the international organizations, we had Eurostat, the OECD, and the United Nations Statistical Division, and we had 2 presentations from countries, from practitioners in countries, Sweden and Germany. We had the opportunity, and we took the opportunity, I think, to share many experiences and to learn practical ways to deal with profiling of enterprises and with providing a good quality picture of enterprise groups. We touched thereby methodology, as well as tools, as well as data. And we had a good opportunity to point out the role of the business register to capture globalization by. We resumed that we should go on with this topic. And in future meetings, perhaps of the Wiesbaden group, sure, I would suggest in the Wiesbaden group, in the joint meeting of the international organizations, perhaps also, but also in bilateral contacts, which we could have in between. So in the steering group, I guess we will discuss to have a similar or even more broadened session like this in the next meeting. Some of us, as I said, are keen on trying to keep contact bilaterally or multilaterally in the meantime. We had some interesting discussion about this and some interesting questions to the presenters about their products, which will go on in the future. And so I'm very happy, and it was a pleasure to chair this session because it was my topic, so to say, and I was happy to be able to share caring about this topic here in the Wiesbaden group. Very much.
Many thanks, Roland, for your nice and kind comments. Muchas gracias a Roland por sus comentarios. Entonces ahora siguiendo.
Well, we thank Roland for his kind comments. Now to continue with this dynamic of what we try to do as a resume about of these relevant general issues that within the perspective of each session leader we have, I will now give the floor to our colleague from the Statistical Office from Sweden, Natalia Doronsova. So in this session that concluded today before the break regarding the statistical quality, so she will share her comments and the elements that she considers that we should highlight of this session number 7. Natalia, the floor is yours now.
Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias.
Just a remark from Switzerland, not Sweden. Okay, in session 7, the aim of session 7 was to share the experiences on the quality maintenance and the statistical coverage in business registers. We heard 5 excellent contributions that showed very well and covered very well this topic. We heard the experience of Statistic Netherlands. Statistic Netherlands is building actually a platform to process and monitor and distribute administrative data. And the main goal of this process is to optimize and automate the processes as much as possible. And it seems to be a long-term development and very challenging. And I would like to wish good luck for Statistic Netherlands for this project. And I'm very interested to hear later about the progresses you will do and your lesson learned. We heard also the experience of Eurostat, which is within the framework of that data quality program about the annual assessment on the quality of national statistical business registers using the quality dimensions, and which a particular focus on timeliness and on completeness. Eurostat offers an example of composite quality indicator, which provide an interesting general assessment, even if it may over or underestimate certain aspects of the registers. The remark raised during the discussion about the dissemination or publication of this information seems to me be relevant. The Australian Bureau of Statistics shared also with us its experience on how the use of new administrative sources has increased the coverage of statistical of their business register and improved sector coding. And again, the sources were assessed using quality dimension and could confirm their potential benefits before they were used. And finally, we had the presentation on 2 international cooperation projects showing the importance of national business registers in other statistical domain, and how the international organization not only follow with a big interest the various progresses made in business registers, but also offer support for the future development. And I think, yeah, the main conclusion was already made that statistical business registers remain important for all statistical domain. And we heard all across all sessions that how it's important to be responsive to the changes. And I think it's also one of the lessons of COVID-19 crisis that for official statistics is to be able to publish and disseminate and offer statistical results as soon as possible and with the highest quality. SBR, donc statistical business registers are a central element in the economic statistic, and they must also be in position to adapt and to respond promptly and quickly to these new needs. It's therefore important that each national statistical institute can know the maturity level of its business register and the quality of the data stored in it. The quality indicators become, and in my point of view, the crucial topic for the maintenance and for the future development of business registers. Moreover, in the growing digital world, where a huge amount of data flows in an invisible way, the user will require more and more information about the quality of the available data. And from my point of view, the responsibility of business register is to publish this information, is to disseminate this information. And that brings us to the discussion that we had today at the end of section 7. Should we publish the quality indicator results or the maturity model results? Do we need to share this information only between us or with the public? And in my opinion, it's our responsibility again to do the both. If we want our data to be used and to be trusted, I think we have to be transparent about who we are and about what we have in our registers, and also be able to learn more about ourselves. And to conclude, I think that we have not finished talking about quality and statistical coverage, and that topic will remain as very relevant for the future discussion in Wiesbaden group or other groups. Yeah, I think that's all. Thank you.
Natalia, many thanks. Gracias, Natalia, por tus comentarios.
We thank Natalia for her kind comments. I certainly value your participation, and we already have with us to share with us the conclusions of session 4. Let me go now the floor to Egon Gerard, our colleague from the Statistical Office of the Netherlands. So he will share his analysis, his resume of the relevant topics regarding to this session that he led, session 4, about new products, new data sources, and the use of tools. Egon, we thank you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Gerardo, for the opportunity to say a couple of words to you all. And sorry, due to some personal issues, I had to skip 20 minutes. So Gerardo had to shift in the order at the last moment. Thank you for the flexibility. Tuesday, and for some already on Wednesday, we had a very interesting session with 5 slightly different topics. But the joint agreement of the 5 presentations was that they all describe a challenging development caused by a rapidly changing society. While looking back at Tuesday, we had 5 presentations, one by Norway on the generic solution for statistical business register, from New Zealand on the more timely data to measure the impact of COVID-19. The Netherlands and the Dutch initiatives in web scraping and machine learning. From Mexico, the main results of the 2020 business demography study. And from Canada, using open data for statistical business register. And I think there were 5 very interesting and also very interesting presentations that opened up, at least for me, and I hope also for you, some educational insights. And looking at the great discussion we had after the 5 presentations, I think we succeeded in motivating new ideas and to work together on the future of the business register and the creation of business statistics. Well, I'm not going to try to repeat the presentations because, well, the presenters know that way better than me. But to look back at the 5 different presentations, I see that the web-based application of StatBus really opens up a lot of opportunities. Looking at the presentation today by Hank Hermans on the maturity model, I also see there's perhaps a connection with this maturity model. I think that's a nice, how do you say it in English? It's a nice point to look into whether there can be a combination of development. We also saw a description of New Zealand and Mexico in creating information in the business register and business statistics overall in the COVID time. And there you see that new opportunities, new threats, and new challenges are being faced. And there was one very common comparable issue that in this very hectic time, that the necessity of a good business register and good economic indicators is crucial for the economy. I think both presentations showed that to us. So I think that what we are discussing here is very important for the economy of all our countries and of the world. Next, we had a lively discussion on the use of web scraping to improve the quality on business register and also to open new opportunities. And in the discussion afterwards, I noticed that a lot of countries are working on this topic, also in Mexico. And I see a lot of opportunities to work together and to avoid making the same mistakes in the same countries over and over again. So we really have to learn from each other to make it stronger and to perhaps speeding up the developments. Well, the final presentation of Canada showed the modernization of the SBR. And when I look back at that presentation, I remember a magic word, more or less, or a magic combination of words, and that's data linkage. And I think that data linkage is in a lot of ways very important for the use of the business register. And combining the building register and the statistical business register look very promising and stimulating for the future. So, in short, I think it was very educational and motivating to see all these new developments. We hope that we can create new combinations of working together on the developments across countries. And it was for me really another and also the first time to share a session in a setting like this. So I'm also very pleased that Gerardo, that you took the risk in letting me chair our session. So thank you for that. And to finish up, well, I opened on Tuesday with my flip-flops and walking on the beach in Merida with 34 degrees. Well, there's one little promise to myself, and in the meantime also to my children, that the flip-flops are still in my suitcase, and I hope I can make a real visit to Mexico in the future. So, well, again, I can't say this enough. Arturo, Gerardo, and all the colleagues, thank you very much for organizing this virtual Wiesbaden group. Thank you.
No, thank you. And you and your family will be most than welcome in our country, of course, for enjoying the beach and many of the paradises that we have here in this side of the world. Thank you. Thank you for your nice comments, Egon. Very, very happy to support all people for this meeting. Muchas gracias a Egon y particularmente ahorita, bueno,
we thank Egon and how warm his comments are. Now, this is my chance as leader of session 8, dedicated to this topic of the usefulness of geospatial information. And I would like to share the following at this chance that I have. First of all, let me thank you for the opportunity as the steering group and the Wiesbaden group for the trust placed on us in order to take charge of lead this geospatial 8 session. It is my first participation at the Wiesbaden group. I've been since 2018 involved in the Deputy Direction of Administrative and Economic Records under the office led by Arturo Blancas as the head office of Economic Statistical Office in INEGI, Mexico. It was simply, we had this commitment of being able to organize this 27th meeting in Neuchâtel in Switzerland, not Sweden, as you mentioned. And well, this organization now of this 27th meeting in Mexico, but unfortunately, well, we were unable to have this meeting with your personal attendance. We would have liked to do it here and to be able to share in presence everything that we have talked at this chance. And I have also realized that this is a very close, warm group of friends where there is a lot of experience. And I also value your friendship, a very pleasant working environment, this fact of sharing experiences in areas that are quite useful for our countries in regards to the business records, as we call them in Latin America and the Caribbean. So within this chance that I have now of the geospatial information, we had 2 presentations prior to the coffee break today. So we came across the topic of the presentation made by Portugal, that how much do we know our economic units, our business, our enterprises in the business records. And here, the challenging issue is always all of the information that we may get, by connecting the business record or as a part of what it integrates the business records in order to interpret this and to have more elements that will allow us to get to know, as it was explained by Isabel Fariña, the environment beyond what we have in our activities, individual and independent, the environment that surrounds what has to do with the economic units that we have within our SBRs. In the second presentation, it was very practical, where we shared the geospatial information, geographic information, this G that the Statistical and Geographic Office of Mexico has, INEGI, allows us to empower the data that we have, not only to speak statistically of an economic unit, but to be able to locate the geographic environment where this is located. So under this perspective is that we had this second presentation by my colleague Hugo Hernandez from Mexico INEGI. And what is obvious here, under this idea of what we wanted to express with this 8th session regarding the usefulness of geospatial information, is a topic that is here to stay, in particular when we are leading this to statistical information and the possibility of more features regarding the environment of where the economic units are located. So this issue from INEGI Mexico, and as a part of the board of the leading group, we will be promoting it. And also, we have seen the countries that responded to the SBRs. They already have geospatial information in their business records. We believe this is a way to follow. We should keep on strengthening this and to keep on getting feedback from the users. For us, it has been very valuable to have the denue, the fact that users can provide us with feedback in order to improve our product and this allows us to identify the economic units in the space that it belongs to. This is basically the scenario that I wanted to express to you. I certainly thank very much all the kind comments of all the session leaders. As I was saying prior to begin today's session, Thursday, the 23rd of September, for some of you, even the 24th, if you're in Asia and Oceania. I mean, our colleague from New Zealand was mentioning this at the beginning of today's session. Well, it is truly a pleasure to receive your kind comments. There is a large team working with Mr. Arturo Blancas, with myself, with Hugo Hernandez, a lot of people in the IT team, the organizing team. It has been quite a challenge to organize this meeting. And well, we are so pleased that you've felt comfortable with it. Well, I will now go, if you allow me. We have to continue with our session, and we now have a participation, in this case, to talk to us about what will be the group of experts regarding business records meeting that will be held in 2022. This is this joint meeting that will have in intermediate years of the Wiesbaden group, organized by the Economic Commission for Europe of the United Nations. This is UNICE and Eurostat, and with the OECD. So for this purpose, the host is going to be, in the case of Eurostat, Enrica Morganti was telling us about it, but I will give the floor to Kathy Volsen. I don't know if Enrique will participate. We have a presentation from them, and then we have this 10-minute block for you to share with us what is the scenario ahead of us for our 2022 meeting that will take place in the framework of the group of experts regarding statistical business records. Let me give the floor to Carsten. Carsten, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Gerardo. Thank you very much. I will do it very short. I will just say thank you again. And we have met already with the three colleagues from OECD and Eurostat and UNECE, Enrique and Rodolfo and myself. And the hosting of it's a joint meeting between the three organizations, and the hosting is rotating between us, and the next meeting will be hosted by Eurostat in Luxembourg. So I think I will just give the floor to Enrique to make her intervention and her presentation. Thank you very much, Gerardo.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Carsten. So I will try to share the screen. Okay. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see the presentation.
Okay. So it's just 4 slides. So as you already introduced, the meeting of the expert group on business registers is organized by the three organizations on a rotational basis, and the next year, 2022, it will be organized by Eurostat. Here we see the dates that are foreseen to be confirmed, as you will see next. And there are just 3 slides. So the time plan for the preparation of the meeting, depending on the situation, of course, we will take a decision about the format of the meeting, if it will be physical or online meeting. If it will be an online meeting, the tool will be provided by UNACE, and this information we hope will be more or less clear by the end of this year, beginning of next year. And of course, my personal preference will be to have it physical meeting, not only because I would like to see the colleagues in person, but mainly because I'm very scared to organize these complex meetings online, and Inegi was just telling how many people have to be involved to support you on everything. But okay, let's see how the things will evolve. So depending on this, UNACE will be able to send the invitation letters and the call for papers soon at the beginning of 2022. And we have more or less the idea to fix the deadline for the submission of the abstract around March, April. And the papers could be presented in August. So more or less a similar calendar that we had this year for the Wiesbaden group. And as said, the meeting could take place from the 26th to the 28th of September included, if physical, and if online, it will probably need more days because, as you know, we just have a short slot of hours during which we can do this online meeting to allow the participation of all the countries around the world. So the topics suggested by the 2019 expert group meeting on business registers are the following, and we bring them forward. So the first one is the use of administrative data, big data, and other data sources. The classifications and identifiers in the statistical business register. The classification will be relevant because, as you know, there will be in the future the revision of this economic activity classifications. The modernization of the statistical business register, and also using the statistical business register to produce additional statistics, including the use of microdata linking. As we discussed, the globalization and multinational enterprise group topic is still proposed in the agenda, as well as the use of the business register for measuring the digital economy. And then other proposals that could be added, the statistical business register and the COVID-19 pandemic could be still a relevant topic. The statistical business registers and measurement of well-being and sustainability, these are also very relevant topic at the moment, discussed in the scope, in particular, of the SNA revision. And in general, the dissemination and topics related to opening up of the business registers information. The format, as said, we will decide later whether it will be physical or online. We excluded the possibility for a hybrid meeting because we discussed this with the colleagues of OECD and UNACE, and it didn't really look to be something feasible. We also discussed whether it could be interesting to organize a poster session. If online, this could mean to have parallel group sessions. This could be the opportunity for more presenters to have a space to deliver and to show their work. And also we consider, as usual in the meetings of the UNACE expert group, to have the special session for Eastern Europe, Caucasus, and Central Asia and Southeast Europe countries. So this is at the moment the status of the preparation. So maybe I can go back to the calendar. I don't know if this can be useful for the next discussion. Thank you.
Many thanks, Enrica, for the information. Muchas gracias, Enrica, por la información.
Thank you so much for all of that information. So, given the fact that we've covered this part, what has been going on is this rotation between the Wiesbaden group and the expert group meetings. I would like to first and foremost thank all three international organizations in charge of organizing this forum, Eurostat, in this case UNACE, and the OECD, because we had to postpone, we had to dephase. If you remember, last year we had planned for a meeting in Mérida, Yucatan. It wasn't possible due to the pandemic. So given the situation, what we did was postpone the organization of all of these meetings. So this 27th meeting of the Wiesbaden group would be held in 2021. And this expert group meeting that is being presented by Enrica today that will be held would be postponed to 2022, so that the next Wiesbaden group will be held in 2023. So thank you for that support. Part of the cooperation that we have had with all international organizations to accommodate these international meetings on SBRs. Great. So let's move on to the closing remarks of our 27th Wiesbaden group meetings. I would like to give the floor to Arturo Blancas from INEGI Mexico for his closing remarks. Arturo, go ahead. Thank you, Gerardo. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are, to all of the participants of this meeting. I think that we have satisfyingly concluded this part of our 27th meeting on SBRs. From our perspective, we have gone through 4 days of hard work, shared knowledge, and without a doubt, many lessons learned and new information. First and foremost, I would like to especially thank the directive group of the Wiesbaden group, the session leaders for this occasion, and also the presenters for their valuable input to this event. I would also like to publicly acknowledge the work of the INEGI team, my team that was in charge of organizing this important event. As you have already said, the organization of an event of this relevance under these circumstances is very, very difficult due to the pandemic situation. So this has been a very big challenge, and I hope that we have addressed it satisfactorily. I would also like to recognize and acknowledge the work and enthusiasm of all member countries that participating in these meetings. Many ideas have been put on the table throughout these last 4 days. I would like to highlight the challenge that organizing, as Enrica was saying, meetings such as this one in virtual format represents, this new normal that also opens up to new possibilities for collaboration and participation in events of this nature towards the future, which are crucial for exchange of experiences and broadening participation through virtual platforms. We could think maybe that in the future we could host hybrid meetings or hybrid participation meetings in which we could be physically present, always bearing in mind different protocols from different countries, but also as much as possible allow for virtual remote participation through the most appropriate platforms for each event. Why do I mention this? Because we believe that in this session, we have broken the barriers of participation. On average, I think we had a participation of over 130 people in each session, more than we have ever seen in events held in person. Of course, we would be more than willing to share our experience in terms of organizing this forum. As Gerardo was saying, Eurostat, UNES, and the OECD have done us the great favor of postponing their meeting until next year. They had planned to host it last year in 2020, and it was impossible. So we decided with these 3 organizations to move up the Wiesbaden group meeting to this year, thinking that we might be able to host it in person. However, that was not possible, and we ended up with this format. I think this is also in alignment with everything that has happened to us in our National Statistics Office, in our different organizations at an international and national levels. The effects of the pandemic have forced us to take measures that sometimes we did not know of before and that now we are using on a permanent basis. An example of this would be, for example, information compilation work. We more and more use indirect methods that we knew before, but now we are using more. We also need to promote the use of better instruments and platforms throughout all of our officials and employees in our statistics offices so that from home they can keep producing this information just like they used to in their offices. So hopefully this will also keep being a part of our future in the next few years. On the other hand, we saw through our country progress reports and also in several presentations from different international organizations and countries, the need to review the information in terms of recommendation guidelines and manuals and registers and profiling elements based on current conditions, besides the importance of international cooperation and the creation of synergies in terms of the use of big data and capacity and skill development. Surely these topics will be covered in the meetings that Enrica was mentioning. Regarding CPRs, we have developed a special system, as I mentioned in the first session, which is but a starting point for the United Nations in their statistics division to for them to adopt it and so that we can all consult it this way. We have also identified throughout the sessions the need to promote and strengthen development of linking between what is geographical and statistical, considering that approximately half of countries stated they lacked tools for georeferencing their data. We consider this an important issue to be promoted among our countries. We also saw the proposal for the maturity model for business registers, in which we highlight the 7 dimensions that were mentioned. And we believe this is very important work to be carried out in order to have all countries develop their business registers and statistics models with a scheme that will allow us to concretely and specifically develop elements for improvement. Within the framework of the directive group, we will be working throughout the following months. In the pandemic context, unfortunately, we do not have a seat for the 28th Wiesbaden group meeting. Therefore, we will be making contact with some statistics offices for this purpose. We consulted with a few, however, we consider that this way in which we are working around the world is very uncertain right now as to fully determining how and where we will host this meeting. So we are still determining all of those details to see what country will be the organizer. Tomorrow, in the second part of this meeting, which is a special session dedicated to countries from the LAC region and a session to which you are all cordially and formally invited, I'm sure we will be covering very important issues. Just like ECLAC, we consider it of great importance to keep strengthening business registers in the LAC region. We would have been elated, Egon and Gerardo have already mentioned this, we would have been elated to host you in the city of Mérida as it was planned. I remember that 3 years ago in the meeting of Neuchâtel, we prepared a video to show you what Mérida looked like and what we could do over there. We are sure that the cuisine and culture, the current one and the ancestral one, would have been something you would have loved. We would have loved to be there. We had prepared for a special visit, just like Svetlana took us to different sites. We would have loved to do the same here in Mexico, in the historical center of the city of Mérida and the ruins of Uxmal or Chichen Itza, to have a wonderful afternoon. However, unfortunately, due to the pandemic, it was not possible. I hope that, as Egon was saying, you will be able to visit us at some point. Regardless of the situation, we are sure that you will love Mérida and any other city here in Mexico. Finally, I would like to reiterate my thanks to all of you. I hope you have all learned as much as we have. Warm greetings on our part, and hopefully we will be able to see each other in person very soon. Thank you, everyone, and until next time.
Muchas gracias, Gerardo.
Muchas gracias, un gusto.
Thank you, Gerardo. Greetings to everyone, and just like Arturo Blancas was saying, it has been a pleasure to organize and host this meeting in spite of all of the challenges. Natalia, thank you for the applause, and thank you everyone. Thanks to the team that was very supportive. Our warmest regards. Thank you. I think maybe we can turn on our cameras to have to take a quick group picture. We weren't, like Arturo was saying, we're not in Mérida. However, we would like to take a picture to remember this occasion. That way we can share it with everyone. So hopefully our INEGI team will help us take this picture very quickly. Lisbeth has always helped us with this kind of thing. And we will be sharing those pictures with you soon.
Ya tomamos tiempo para una foto. Gracias. Somos 107 personas conectadas. Estamos tomando de las 5 pantallas que componen.
Give us just a few more moments. We're taking pictures of the 5 different gallery screens. Just a few more seconds.
Comentarios en el chat de agradecimiento. Gracias de verdad a ustedes también. Nos motiva mucho.
I'm looking at all of the comments on the chat. Thank you so much. We are also thankful for your participation. Also, we would like to apologize. Sometimes things go wrong in logistics and things like that. So we are doing our best efforts. We are all new to this virtual reality. It's a real challenge to organize an event of this nature in this format. I think that in spite of everything, we have overcome the expectations of being able to learn many things in this 27th meeting, and we're very proud to have hosted the meeting on this occasion. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll be in touch. Good day,
Thank
good
you.
afternoon, and good evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone.
Bye.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Bye bye. See you.
Bye.
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 See you soon.
Mañana les volveré a ver. Un abrazo.